Estás viendo Canal América, televisión dominicana para el mundo.
Sometimes life can be so damn hard. You don't know where to go. Everything keeps falling apart. Yeah. You try to do your best, but only God knows that you've given everything you've got, but the world takes you down. You just keep moving on. Let your fears.
Welcome to A Time for Truth show. I'm your host, Dr. Bernard Fialkoff, and I want to welcome you back to our program. Many of you have been asking how you get the past episodes. It's very simple. You go on YouTube, you put in A Time for Truth show, and you click on subscribe, and you will be availed of all the previous segments that we've had. And tonight I want to get right to it because we have a very important show, because it deals with our youth, and it deals with discipline, it deals with social interaction, and a good background, a good basis that allows our future generation to go in the right direction. And we have a man on this show who has done a lot in his lifetime in terms of that, and is doing it presently in New York City. So Buddha, if you can, let's put up his pictures up on the screen, and I want to introduce Mr. Ray Haskins. He's a coach, a teacher, a basketball player, and a principal, and now a director in the Brooklyn area, in the New York City area. He graduated from Boys High School in Bedford-Stuyvesant in 1968 and was a basketball star at Shaw University, earning his bachelor's in 1972, going on to Montclair State for his master's 1980, and CCNY in 1984 for a further master's degree. He returned to Brooklyn to coach and teach at Alexander Hamilton High School from 76 to 83. There you see Ray in his playing days. And his teams recorded 179 wins against only 16 losses. And in 81, his Hamilton Rams won the PSAL City Championship and went on to Philadelphia, where they beat Franklin High School, televised on CBS TV. 4 other players from that team went on to the NBA. Mr. Haskins became head coach at Long Island University in 1996 and achieved a record of 121 wins and 51 losses, and earned an NCAA berth almost immediately on his tenure in 1997, and the NIT in 1998. He's an educator and a leader and a principal at Maggie Walker Middle School from 1999 to 2005, and was an IASBO official in the New York City area. He mentored the Jackie Robinson programs for educational standards. And currently, Mr. Haskins is Executive Director of the New York City Department of Education's Public Schools Athletic League. Ray was inducted into the Shaw University Hall of Fame. There you see him. And you can reach him at rfhaskins@hotmail.com. And Buddha, if you can bring him up live, On our show, I want to bid a warm welcome to Mr. Ray Haskins. Welcome, Ray.
Thank you, Doc. Great to be here. Talking about
It's a pleasure to have you, and you got a lot to share with the viewers out there, so I want to get right to it. So I want to ask you, what was it like, when you were in boys' high school back in '68? What was the society like? What was the climate like?
Boys High was a great school, had great tradition, and it was right down the block from where I lived. So I never took public transportation to any school, but Boys High was just special. And I went there, Boys High, for 4 years. Had a great basketball team. When I was in the school, we won 68 straight games. I say we, I feel like I was a part of it, even though I never made the varsity team. Every year I tried out for the team, I got cut. But because of the tremendous programs that we had in our neighborhoods back then, I was able to improve my skills and got better and better and better. And I even achieved a basketball scholarship to Shore University. So I look back at my days at Boys High as very special. And even though I never got an opportunity to play, I always felt as though I was good enough to be on the team, but it just wasn't me. So when I became a coach, I had a better understanding, a better feel of those guys who put everything out and push them to move on, because it's very important. Basketball in our community, makes a difference whether you're successful or unsuccessful. I was taught that basketball was a means to an end, but not the end itself. For a long time, I didn't understand what the hell that was, what it meant. As I went on and was able to achieve and grow in the game, I gained a tremendous understanding of it.
Well, you know what? Makes a lot of sense to me, because it seems in life that, the thing we all have to be willing to do is to give it time to learn, keep improving. So I wholeheartedly agree with you. And, you obviously did pretty well, because the next step was your career at Shaw University. How was that?
Oh, best 4 years of my life, going to Shaw University. I had 6 daughters, and 3 of my daughters enrolled at Shaw University. So Shaw University is very, very special, with special people. Had an opportunity to make friends I still have now. And I talk to them almost on a monthly basis, like we have a schedule. We stay in close contact. Don't miss a homecoming. And part of the Booster Club at Shaw University, make donations. It's just a tremendous thing to still have that connection.
I can understand what you mean, because institutions that I've gone and, learned in, or organizations that I've been part of, as time goes on in life, you realize that, that's what life is all about. So what you're saying makes a lot of sense to me also. And so what was because you went from there and then you got into coaching. And so when you became a coach, what were your philosophies, and what was it that you decided was important to you when you started your coaching career?
Well, when I first started coaching, I coached girls and women's basketball. I coached the community team, Brooklyn, USA, and I was the head women's coach at Hunter College. So I had a real opportunity to ground myself in the fundamentals and understand what the fundamentals were. And I had an appreciation of the dedication that my players had, that these young girls, these young women had. So I was able to transfer that to when I got the opportunity to coach Alexander Hamilton High School and develop one of the best high school programs in the country. We were always nationally ranked. But being able to coach girls got me off to a good start. And I really, really accentuated the fundamentals of the game. It was very important.
Makes sense. The basics, so that they get the basics down and go from there. You know, I've been practicing. I'm a dental surgeon for 40 years now, and I look on it now, and really what I do is broken down into very basic steps and getting them down exactly, and then that leads to everything else. So that that definitely your basics are so important. And I mean, you did a great job, because I see that your teams did really well. So how did it feel when you guided your Rams to the city championship?
Well, it was a great feeling. I don't know if you know it or not. I had 25 players on that team. We didn't have a JV program, and we had a lot of young kids who were talented. And on the way on that journey, I had young kids that were freshmen, like Ed Daviner, who went on to the University of Kentucky and started 4 years. Gerald Green, who took Seton Hall to the championship game against Michigan. Had those kids on that team, Carrie Scurry, Ice Reynolds, who went on to LSU and had spent 16 years in the NBA. Andre Irvin, who led the nation in scoring in junior college and in high school. Had a tremendous opportunity. And what was more important to me is that I was able to get all my kids who wanted to go to college. You didn't have to go to Division I. A lot of them went Division II, Division III. But because of the type program that we developed, I was able to pick the phone up and call Division II coaches, Division III coaches, and get those guys placed. And I even had one kid on the team. He was my manager for 2 years as a ninth grader and 10th grader. Then I gave him a uniform and put him on a team, and now he's a world-famous comedian. He's known as Brooklyn Mike, and he goes all over the world, and he talks about his experiences that he had at Alexander Hamilton. And I also took him to Shaw University. So it opened a lot of doors for a lot of people.
That's beautiful, because you know what? When you're young, you need someone to guide you. And if you get the wrong person, they, instead of guiding you, put you down or criticize you, you never make it. So I'm sure your players must really have a great relationship with you. How is your relationship with your players?
We still have a good relationship.
That's great. I saw in one of the pictures that the two of the guys who went to the NBA, you sent me a few pictures of on them, right? That was
Yes.
One of them was it Ice, you said?
Yes, it was.
Well, it must be really gratifying to see these youngsters, and then they go into professional basketball and make it. I mean, how did it feel to see your guys go into professional basketball? Did you, when they went on, what were your feelings when you saw them playing? Oh, it looks like he froze up, and on the screen. That's a shame. So, one of the things that Ray is helping on is we're going to be holding a basketball game. Actually, it's a tournament of 3-on-3s in Hempstead with the Globetrotters, headed by Robert Hunter. And this event has been organized by trustee and former New York Jet Noah Burrows in the Hempstead area. And I think we have Mr. Haskins back live. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can, Doc. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no problem. What I was going to ask you is, how did it feel when you saw these young guys go into professional basketball and now you saw them there?
It was a great feeling to know that I was a part of their success, and it was even greater that they acknowledged that I had a lot to do with their growth and development and guiding them in that positive direction. But even more so, I was happy for those guys, but I was also happy for the other guys who became teachers and they became coaches. And I had 4 guys who became coaches, and one of them is still coaching now. That's Jake Edwards. He's coaching at Canarsie High School. And I had a couple of women that went on to be coaches. So that was a real extension, and be able not just to help the guys or help the kids who everybody knows about. We always get those stories about the guys who go to the NBA, but in the total journey, where guys are just successful because of what happened in practice and on the basketball court in their preparation, they were just as important to me as those guys who did make the NBA and those guys who did go to University of Kentucky and LSU and Seton Hall, Houston, LIU. Those were just great, just as great to me, gratifying to me that those guys made it also.
Absolutely. What do you feel was key to your success at LIU? Because, you got there and you immediately went to the NCAA. What do you feel you were doing that was leading to that high success?
Well, when I first got to LIU, first thing I noticed, not one kid on the team was from Brooklyn. And if you know anything about the history of the NBA, Brooklyn has put out more NBA players than any other city in the world, in America. Wow. And we like to say Brooklyn is the 4th largest city in America, even though it's a borough in New York. So I know that if I got some guys from Brooklyn, and I had Charles Jones and Mike Campbell, two tremendous players, I brought them over to LIU to help with the mission. And once I infused that Brooklyn in it, Brooklyn was very, very important. Brooklyn was so important that, we like to say that, God had a hand in it, because everybody say how great Michael Jordan was, but his parents saw fit to come to Brooklyn to give birth to Michael Jordan before they went on and branched out to other places. So, Brooklyn is just special. And I think that was the key to my success at LIU, was being able to recruit and keep kids home from Brooklyn and play for LIU.
Makes a lot of sense. I grew up in Connecticut, and a lot of the basketball players from Hartford originally went to other schools, and then when UConn started to grow, they started to keep all of these players from the Hartford area at UConn, and UConn did fantastic. So I can understand what you're saying, because when I was at UConn, they finally made it to the NIT in a few years, and after I left, they really blossomed into the power that they are, in the last years. So I see now you got a role as executive director with the New York City Department of Education with the Athletic League. So tell me, what does that entail? What is that all about?
Well, that's a tremendous job with a tremendous opportunity. As you know, the first public school athletic league was established in Brooklyn in 1903. So we were the forerunner. We were the model for the rest of the country. And at this particular time, we may be a little bit on the downside. And I had the opportunity to be a part of bringing our sports programs back to the top. So oftentimes, what's been happening in this country, and you see a lot of kids who started in our school system will branch out and go to those prep schools because of AU programs or whatever. And then when they are successful, they say they're from somewhere else, but actually they started and they're part of New York City system. And one of my most proudest moments was when I saw what St. Peter's College achieved. And when they interviewed the coach, he went to Seton Hall, and they said, "Oh, we see you have these Jersey roots. How good does it feel?" He said, "Don't get me wrong. I think a lot about New Jersey, but I'm from New York. That's where my roots started." And that's the story of a lot of our kids, where they go all over the country, and we don't get credit for them as much as we once did. And now my job is to help our programs keep those kids here, grow those kids in New York. And when they do go out, we all know, we don't have to find out later that, oh, that kid is originally from New York. So that's part of my mission.
That's beautiful. And what, how do you feel that this is impacting bringing the sports into the city? Because I know, I had on the show Phil Rucker, maybe about a month ago, and he mentioned to me that, years ago there were a lot of ongoing basketball tournaments, and he mentioned to me how it changed the community. What's your feeling on that, and how sports can impact some of this violence that's going on in the city and the disarray that's going on?
He's 100% correct. And one of the things I would like to see, when I was a kid, the schools were all open. They were accessible to our youth. We had the evening center, we had night centers, not just a few selected schools, but basically every school in every community was open. So I learned so many things being able to go to the evening school program and the night programs. I got help with my academics. I learned how to do things that I wouldn't have learned. I learned how to dance. I learned how to play basketball. I learned how to socialize. I learned how to play ping pong. So when I went away to college, I noticed a lot of students for the first time who were away from home, they got pulled in. So they stayed in the student union. They didn't go to their classes like they should have. They had a responsibility for being away from home the first time. But guys like me who came, we had already experienced that. So it was nothing new to us. So we just stayed with the program. When you're an athlete, you're very special because you have a specially prescribed program, and time is of essence. And the time is valuable, and you schedule your time. You have time for practice, you have time for classes, you have time for socialization, you have time for learning. So as an athlete, you learn how to put all those things together to make it work for you. As opposed to normal students, they have time, but they don't understand what time is, and what time is to athletes.
Absolutely. You know what? I think it's important because I know that when I grew up, we would love to go to this area called the Rec. And at the Rec, we would play basketball. And I remember how great it felt to have somewhere to just take out my energy, hang out with people I knew from the schools. And, I think it's something that we need to take a look at and reinstitute back into our city. So does your department do that? Is that what your department does? Or
at one time, that particular responsibility was under the auspices of the PSAL. That was one of the wings. But in the 70s, we had a lot of budget cuts, and right now we only servicing 1/3 of the student athletes in the city of New York. Wow. We're being very neglectful for middle schools. We don't have PSAL middle school. We don't have PSAL elementary school. At one time, we had PSAL in all those levels. So that's that's a big drive. We're trying to hopefully maybe get some sponsorship or some budget, some money redirected so we could service the entire city. Because one of the biggest assets for retaining student attendance and in school is our athletic programs. So that's very, very important.
Absolutely. Also, it'd be interesting if they did a study, but it seems to me that it's very coincidental that they cut back, and there was cutting back on these sports programs that gave an ability to vent and to get out and work out your energy and be with people, and how as that happened over time, then there's been the increase in drugs and the violence. And what's your feeling on that, Ray? You agree with that, or?
I agree 100%, and that's also one of my jobs is to let our educational leaders. A lot of them don't understand the importance of athletics, the importance of the mere fact that they're involved in active, positive programs. Keep them away from those. It acts as a deterrent to substance abuse or going into those areas right there. So that's an important connection to understand for our educational leaders to be able to use that tool so that we could stay on that straight line,
Absolutely. Well, we're getting near the end of the show, but one of the things I wanted to mention, and Globetrotter Bobby Hunter and myself go around doing a lot of drug education combining with basketball. So maybe we can figure out how we can help in the city and do the same thing, and get some sports and get education so these kids don't go on drugs. What do you think about that?
That's something that I would definitely like to talk to you and Bobby, or we call him Zorro, about how we could get you involved and have a more positive role moving forward in the public school system.
Absolutely. Well, you know what? When he was Brooklyn Borough President, Mayor Adams declared a drug-free World Day in Brooklyn, and so I know he's got that same dream also for kids and for safety, fighting for that. So, unfortunately, we ran out of time on the show, Ray, but thank you for being on our show.
Thank you, and thank you for mentioning our mayor, because he's a very special guy doing a very special job at a very special time in the history of New York City. So we pray that he be successful, continue to be successful.
Absolutely. Well, you know what? One thing I have learned is too easy to criticize. It's more important to help out and empower. And he's trying to do the best he can. So, maybe we can all get together and, like you said, move forward.
Yes.
Well, Ray Haskins, thank you for being on the show. And for those of you watching the show, let's see what we can do to instill back after-school programs where our youth can do, like Ray said, they can learn to dance, they can play sports, athletics, socialize, and let's reverse this trend that's been going on in our city, in our world, with the violence, with the social problems. And it's been a pleasure to have you on tonight's show. We'll see you again on the next episode of A Time for Truth show. Good night.
Sometimes life can be so damn hard. You don't know where to go. Everything keeps falling apart. Yeah. You try to do your best, but only God knows that you've given everything you've got, but the world takes you down. You just keep moving on. Let your feet